Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. Mr. Case?
Thank you. Dr. Bonzanto, for me, one of the most troubling parts of the report have to do with inadequate protection of whistleblowers' identities and follow-up on retaliation claims. And of course, that translates throughout an organization, and people start to get the feeling that they're not protected in coming forward. And of course, that has consequences on the substantive side. But what I'm interested in is just this follow-up to the report category that certain matters were referred out. I'm on page, let's see where I'm on page, I don't see a page number, but I'll just read it to you. Of the 2,526 referrals to other VA components, at least 51 of those involved allegations of whistleblower retaliation. It goes on to describe how I think you tried to understand what happened to those 51 cases, but there was mention that you didn't think you had the adequate resources to actually go back and investigate every one of them. Is that a fair characterization of the report? What I'm trying to get at is what happened to the 51 cases, at least 51 cases of alleged retaliation that seem to have gotten lost in the system along the way?
Sir, I'll have to take what happened with the 51 cases, but I know previous to around June 2018, cases that involved retaliation were being referred back to the administration, and we do, but now we investigate all whistleblower retaliation cases, and I'll take that for the record if we're looking at the 51 cases you're mentioning. I know when I came on board, we started looking at cases that were previously closed to see, to address whether or not they were, properly addressed, and there were some identified, and those are with our quality team. The ones that, the staff decided were not appropriately addressed, we actually reviewing that with our quality team right now.
It says here that there was that review that you were talking about, and this quote unquote, this review resulted in the identification of 42 cases that merit additional review.
That's the 42 cases I'm talking about. But I don't know if those 42 included the 51 that you're
Well, it looks like it's a subset of the 51. Is that correct, General? Does that sound familiar?
I don't think that's a subset, but it's what OAWP is doing on those. Those were 51 that were sent back to the offices from where the complainant came from. Correct.
Well, my overall point is where there were allegations of whistleblower retaliation, the report says that they were not adequately processed in the big picture. They were not adequately reviewed. And my question is, and maybe this isn't a subject for answer right now, is have they now been completely reviewed so that there is an alteration of the culture and understanding within the community that these whistleblowers will not be retaliated against, and if there are, then they will be adequately processed?
So now we actually, OAWP investigates all whistleblower retaliation cases.
Okay.
Those cases do not get referred out. And to increase the transparency in the process, we're communicating more with whistleblowers. I've mandated since I started. We're contacting them every 14 days to give them an update of the status of their cases, right?
So. Is that your understanding that the system is better, General, that the system is better for protecting against, for protecting whistleblowers who feel that they have been retaliated against?
We've seen certainly a change in attitude of leadership of OAWP. We do continue to get calls. I got an email yesterday from somebody saying that the office wasn't working as effectively as it should have. So we've still continued to get them. We do talk to OAWP about them without obviously disclosing the identities, just so they can have information to work with. And it's going to be a long process to get the confidence of whistleblowers back.
Okay, well, I think that's really critical here, because otherwise you won't have effective whistleblowers out there if their identities are suspect and if they don't feel that they're protected adequately against retaliation. So I would leave you with that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case, and I associate myself with your remarks. Ms. Roby? Thank you, Judge Carter. Mr. Case?
Can I follow up on, I think, where Mr. Hurd was trying to go when he talked about what we are discussing today is symptomatic of broader problems. And I would put it a different way. I would say that today we have been talking about procedures that are really critical to ensure accountability, protect whistleblowers. We've talked about failures in training. We've talked about failures to protect identities and to assure non-retaliation. These are all procedures, but they all have a substantive cause, and they all have a substantive result. And so what I'm asking you is to go broader, as he asked you to do. You are trying to ensure an accountability and whistleblower protection system, but what are the underlying substantive issues that are usually involved in the claims of non-accountability, the claims of whistleblowers? So, we can, the VA is a huge entity with multiple silos and multiple responsibilities, each one of them critical to our vets and their families, whether it be disability benefits or whether it be administration of VA healthcare systems, or whether it be, administration of student loans and the GI Bill. We could take it from a substantive area of responsibility. We could also, as Ms. Roby was trying to get to, take it from apparent, huge inconsistencies in delivery of quality geographically. So in running your job and in making your report, are there underlying substantive clusters that are causing more of the complaints of non-accountability that the whistleblowers are getting at? And conversely, if we're not running that system correctly, are there deficiencies substantively that are therefore not getting full attention and not getting a result?
I could speak to OAWP, and I could say the lack of oversight within the office was the main issue that we had, right? And the office wasn't aligned with the statutory mission that they were supposed to be doing. Part of the law is requiring OAWP to identify what you're looking for, those systemic issue, and that team that we're currently building out that requires us to track recommendations from other investigative entities like GAO, OIG, OSC, and OMI, Office of Medical Inspector, will allow us to do that, identify systemic issues and be proactive in addressing those issues. That part of the law we haven't fully implemented. We've most recently implemented a case management system where we can start looking at systemic problems or pockets of problems and identifying those early. We only started that in June, so at this point in time, we don't have sufficient data that I could really say this is the problem, but we're building out that system.
Yeah, understood, and that's a fair response. I guess, and I think what you're saying in so many words is we don't know yet because we haven't implemented that part of the law, but you want to get there, and that's fair. But you have nonetheless been reviewing, complaints and non-disclosures and procedural deficiencies, and you must have formed some judgments at this point about whether there are, areas that you think should be prioritized in terms of substantive oversight.
I would say, going back to Judge Carter's comment about trust, is employees trusting the system and trusting that their supervisors will do the right thing.
Yeah, but I'm asking you underneath that, are they complaining about specific areas? Are you getting concerns from inside the VA community substantively? And I'm not talking about oversight or training or trust. I'm talking about, is it coming out of the disability benefits part of it? Is it geographically clustered, or is it just systematic across the board, substantive?
Oh, if you're looking for an area, I could say the majority of our concerns come out of the VH Veterans Health, but they're the largest workforce in VA, right? They have
Correct.
over 250,000 employees, so that's
Correct.
expected. And that's as much as I can give you on that.
Okay, and in general, do you have a comment?
Yeah, when we did the review of the Washington, D.C. Medical Center, that came in through a person who asked to remain confidential. It was a well-respected VA employee. And what we found there was what we called in the report of culture of complacency. And by that, what we were trying to say is that there were people in the VA Medical Center who knew things weren't working well, that there were serious problems, that patients were being put at risk, but they felt helpless in raising them up the chain, that when they would raise them, they would either be retaliated against or their concerns were not heard. And we've seen that in other places as well. And what we're trying to do is to break that culture of complacency. Obviously, the Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection is got to be a big part of that as well, so that when people come forward, they won't feel that their issues aren't heard or aren't going to be acted on, or that they're not going to be treated with respect and to be protected. And so that is a big part of what we're trying to achieve as an organization, is to make sure that VA employees and others, contractors and others who may know of information, will feel comfortable to come forward to the appropriate office to raise those kind of concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.